Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be reviewing the new Conan Gray album, Superache, or probably Superache. It's his second album, and if you don't know, I reviewed his first album. I reviewed it a few months late because my high school age daughter very much liked the album, and she wanted me to review it, so I did. So I've been kind of keeping my ears out for Conan Gray, and I'm very excited to hear his new album, an album which I believe to be a great step forward. And in the interim, there's been an album by someone named Olivia Rodrigo. Now, if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking beneath the hood, you might not know the correlation between these two. But the correlation, the connecting line, is the producer Daniel Nigro, Nigro. I finally looked up how to pronounce his name. There's a couple ways to pronounce his name improperly. Daniel Nigro, if you didn't know, he has definitely arrived. He belongs in that category of super producers of pop. Whatever that is, whatever kind of hierarchy you have, whatever your Antonoffs are that are all up there, I think Daniel Nigro has officially earned his space at the table. Is my camera a little bit crooked? I don't edit my videos, so let's see. I think, oh Jesus. That's better. It's exactly the same. That's fine. I think Nigro deserves to be there because the first Conan Gray album, Kid Crow, the Olivia Rodrigo album, Sour, and this show that he is really helping to put pop music in a very good, healthy music-facing place. Most of the instrumentation is acoustic with some electronic music. It's slightly formulaic and the, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus kind of production. But still, he's not chasing trends. And his songwriters aren't chasing trends. And you get the sense that he's really taking these young artists and putting them under his wing and telling them what to do and helping them become stars. And the albums do sound similar on a certain level. But the songwriting is so solid. And it's so nice to hear something that's not based on just chasing whatever sounds. There's no trap beats on here. There's no intentional mix-up of genres. It's going to be more popular. There's no trendy featuring people on here. There's none of that. Daniel Nigro, and by extension Olivia Rodrigo, and definitely Conan Gray, are making pop music that is just solid pop songwriting with charismatic lead singers who tear your heart out and jump around on it. That's what they do, and that's what pop music can do, and that's what it could always do, but it's not always done well. So let's praise Daniel Nigro, and now that I've talked about him, let's just really focus on Conan Gray, because obviously, even though these singers are very influenced and very helped by their producers, they are their own artists. They are their own songwriters. He writes or co-writes all of the songs here. And one thing I will definitely tell you is this album is surprisingly deep. There's 4 primary themes I was able to identify on this album, and 3 of them are super interesting. One of them is fine. One of the most interesting is the first theme you find on the album, the nature of false emotions, the relationship between sort of false emotions and real emotions. And usually those false emotions are shown as being things that you think you feel, or things that you want to feel, or things that are mediated by a third party. I'll explain that a little bit more as we go on. But the feeling of wanting to be in love. The feeling of wanting to be in love should not be confused with the feeling of being in love. It's a desire to feel something is not the same thing as feeling something. That's surprisingly deep. Especially when you think of this kid being, 20 years old, 19 years old, however old he is, being able to write at this level is quite interesting. The second theme, which is on this album a couple times, is that weird moment where you pass from childhood to adulthood and you lose your best friend from high school. Or you grow apart. You don't lose them, right? You don't lose them in some, freak gardening accident, you just grow apart. And it really seems to be, and I've read a little bit of some of the thinking behind the songwriting here, it does seem that a lot of this album is about his breakup with a friend of his who he grew up with. I believe the name is Ashley. And it's funny because if you've never watched the show, it's on Netflix. It was aired on MTV. Bo Burnham, big brain genius boy of YouTube, great comedian, he had a TV show called Zach Stone is Going to Be Famous. Zach Stone. And if you've ever seen the show, you might know where I'm going. Because he has a best friend character in that show who's a female character, and you sort of always want them to get together, and sort of a will they, won't they kind of thing growing up in this nice kind of suburban area. So it's very funny because I've maybe seen like 5 pictures of Conan Gray, so like what he looks like isn't that clear to me in my head. So I just sort of picture Bo Burnham's character singing these songs to the character of Amy in that TV show. Check it out if you've never watched it. The third theme, which is boring, is fine. Heartbreak. 2 kinds of heartbreak on this album. You got the breakup song, and you got the, oh gee, I wish you loved me song. And then we get the 4th theme, which came out of nowhere. You know those like TikToks or the Instagram videos or the world star hip hops of like people flying from off screen and punching somebody in the face and knocking them out, like that weird knockout challenge, whatever that was. Don't do that, kids. It's not cool. There's one song in particular on this album that was the knockout challenge on me. It just absolutely knocked me out. I was just done. I had to press stop. I was crying. I was trying to collect myself. I couldn't believe it. So those are the 4 themes. 3 of which are very deep and I've never heard before. The other is heartbreak. You need it. You need to have heartbreak. He's a handsome guy and he's very popular with the kids these days, so that makes sense. And for those songs, that's where I have to recognize that maybe Conan Gray is not writing for me. There's a chance that his key demographic is not 44-year-old French professors in Western New York. His key demographic is probably teenage girls. That's probably the key demographic. So for that, I have had some help on this video. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that every once in a while, my daughter will get dressed up in a goat mask and appear on camera with me. And she'll be talking about music that she likes, and we talk about it together. 10 out of 10 child psychologists agree that putting children on social media is bad for children. I know! Who would guess that whatever the weird things that happens inside of my brain that aren't always good for me, that happen on this channel and happen on the TikTok and happen on the Instagram and happen on the Facebook and happen on the Twitter, all that stuff, who would know that younger brains are not quite capable of doing that? But still, she has valuable input. She is the target demographic. She has been listening to Conan Gray. She does love this music. So every once in a while, I will pop out Goat's Notes. Meh. She's actually in the other room listening, so maybe she can make the noise when I say, Goat's Notes. Meh. Okay. So the first one is a general thought on the album. She thought there were too many singles because she's listened to the singles over and over again on the album, but that's not a big deal. She primarily likes the thing that I like, which is that she doesn't know if this is a better album than Kid Crow because she hasn't listened to it enough, but it's much deeper, and that she really likes emotional honesty. So let's get to it. Let's get through the album. I usually do like Sky's Stamp, an example song. I think I'm just going to, because this album has such a flow, those themes are generally sort of chunked out in this album. There's little chunks of these little themes. We'll just start with the first track, and this will be a good way to listen to the album. To think about it, you can click right above the banana right there to hear the track Movies. Already we have a fairly deep song. This is in that theme of false emotions, because he is discussing the difficulty of wanting life to be the way it is in the movies. Now, when he's saying that at first, I thought, oh, come on, Conan. That's not how life is. Do you know how much trouble people get in wanting life to be like it is in the movies? To have a song that does not actually investigate the problematic thinking? The term is romanticism, by the way, in case you didn't know. This is an example of true romanticism, which comes from the French word roman, which means novel, which means living your life as though you're in a novel, which is the same thing as living your life as though you're in a movie. And when you have those kinds of emotions, when you live life like you're in a novel or like you're in a movie, guess what you're not dealing with? Real human emotions. You're writing scripts, you're having fun things, you're being a character in a play, in a movie, in a book. And meanwhile, over here, reality is just chilling. Is that you making all the ding-dongs?
That's you.
Oh. Would you mind closing my computer then? I don't edit my show, so you're just gonna have to hear me completely dadding it up. Did I just call those ding-dongs? Oh, good. So there's these divisions between reality and romantic ideals. But Conan Gray doesn't leave it there. He starts off with this beautiful song with his high, sweet voice over these moving guitar chords, so much guitar on here. But then he says in the pre-chorus, "But I've been living life in fiction." And we realize, okay, good. He realizes the problem of how he's been living. If you're interested in talking to a French professor, I will tell you there's a great school of French literature in the 19th century called realism, which sought to fight the nature of this romanticism. Okay, some authors will be discussing. Greatest example is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, one of my favorite books, maybe my favorite book of all time. It's all about that difficulty. And this is a song about that. As he says in the chorus, "'Cause baby, this ain't like the movies." And that's the punchline for everybody. Nothing is like the movies. Just nothing is like the movies. The next verse, it gets a little too specific. "I was screaming my damn head off how you still love your ex, and you say that it's over, but why does she call you at 3 and 4 a.m.? That's a funny way of staying friends." I'm an old man, first of all. I don't understand what's going on with this guy. So it turns out this guy is from Georgetown, Texas, which is cool. I have friends from Georgetown, Texas. I've been to Georgetown, Texas. My daughter was quite excited to learn that she was in the same town as Conan Gray when he was growing up. Very fun. So I get that part of him. I get that he's like one of his parents is Japanese American and the other is not. So like I sort of get that kind of stuff. But whether or not he's like singing about having a romantic relationship with men or women is never clear to me. I don't know if that's part of his thing. I don't know if that isn't a part of his thing. But just the like, still in love with your ex, you say it's over, why does she call you? So is he like in love with a guy whose ex is a woman and everyone's just sort of bi? I don't know. I assume. But that's the great thing about being 44 years old is I recognize that my value systems and my understanding of social relationships is outdated and old. And I just have to learn whatever the new things are. And this song, "How do you still love your ex? You say it's over. Why does she call you at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m.? That's the new normal. It's not weird. It's not bad. It's new-ish. The bridge is full, like this whole song definitely reminds me the most of the Olivia Rodrigo album, just in the dynamics that are in the song, the way it has this emotion. I am going to give you a goat note. You're supposed to make the goat sound. A goat. Now, you have to wait till I say a goat note. Damn, who hurt him? That was what she said about this. And I do think this does have a little bit of that driver's license. Like if Nigro is trying to do anything, he's trying to get that driver's license feeling to the song and the sweeping nature of it and the epic nature of it as well. Goat also noted that it's kind of like a wedding song, but it's good. It's a good song. It's a strong song. I want Conan Gray to be as popular as Olivia Rodrigo. The thing that I love is that the thing that Taylor Swift did when Taylor Swift became a pop star who wrote her own music with her producers. Don't come at me, Taylor stans. She co-writes a lot of her music. That doesn't mean she's not a genius. She's a genius who also co-writes some of her music. I'm sorry, you have to read the credits. It's not my fault. I love Taylor Swift. Don't come at me. But the fact that Taylor Swift managed to be such a great pop star, writing her music with these great producers, creating all this great music, having it be emotionally honest, without having to constantly chase trends, without having to sound like a certain thing, like we see the results. We see the results of the Taylor Swift revolution. The same way that I'll sit around talking about the revolution of Kanye and how we hear Kanye everywhere in hip-hop. There's not a corner of hip-hop that doesn't have Kanye's shadow looming over it. There's not a corner in pop that does not have Taylor's shadow hanging over it. And a song like this, an album like this, an album like Olivia Rodrigo's, we're seeing the benefits of it. Because another thing about being an old man, I remember what pop used to sound like in the 80s and 90s. And you only hear the good stuff now. Most of it was black. Absolute. BLECH. Black. Next song is called People Watching, which is great. It's still in this same mode of these false emotions. Now, I think this is very relatable to precocious teens because I remember being a precocious teen, watching people and like telling stories, like being with my friends, being like, oh, that person over there doesn't like that and that doesn't like that. Like when you're young, you feel like you have an understanding into the world that you haven't earned and don't possess. And I think that that's a lot of what we see here in this song. The voice that he has over the piano, he's spoken almost like a cute. He sings like a cute young woman. I don't really know how to say it, but there's something about his tone that reminds me of a female pop star as opposed to a male pop star. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're doing. But in the chorus, it talks about how he's missing out on life. And this is, again, the idea that now he's mediating emotions not through movies, but through other people. And he just has this distance where he's missing out on life. He's only people watching. The second verse has a little overproduction for my taste, like a 4-on-the-floor beat and this like funky drum beat coming in. I forget which song on the Olivia Rodrigo album has a similar thing where there's like the odd like funky drum loop that comes in. I think it's that song where she talks about listening to Billy Joel. Goat, do you remember what song that is? The ice cream song? Deja Vu. I believe it reminds... That's got the drum thing in it too, right? Yeah, a lot of them have the drum things. But still, it's good. I mean, I like the bridge with that 90s style loop coming in. As far as Goat's notes... She'll never get it. As far as Goat's notes... she notes that she loves people watching. I'm telling you, it's a thing you like doing when you're younger, a little bit less when you're older. She notes that he has a lot of, quote, love and emotion in his voice, which is how he sings. Disaster is the next song, the first of the Heartbreak songs. Again, the way his voice sounds and the way he phrases, he just reminds me so much of a female pop star, even though he has a male voice. It's interesting. I like the muted drums here. This does have the most sort of consciously affected production style. By that I mean it's trying to affect the sounds of the 1980s, especially with the synthesizers. Let me just set the scene. I left a party at Blake's and it's Halloween. That's how it starts off. That's just goofy. A great 80s chorus. Where I say I love you and you don't say it after, this could be a disaster. This is also the first of the star-themed songs on the album. A lot of people don't know this. The actual origin, the etymological root of the word disaster has to do with stars. Like astrology is the same, astronomy is the same thing as aster in there. It's like the misalignment of stars because people used to believe that stars determined your fate. Spoiler, they don't. But that was how we thought. So a disaster, like disabled or discouraged, would be like bad star alignment, bad star movement. So that's the disaster that he's singing about here. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say this is on purpose because this album has these great chunks that kind of interweave and go all the way throughout. And that's just a great line. Where I say I love you and you don't say it after, this could be a disaster. Cool kind of 80s style guitar notes in the break. Apparently some reference to Ashley again. Zach Stone. Again, he's still talking about like wanting to be in love, but it almost seems like he can't be in love if it's not reciprocated. Goat's notes. She says she likes an upbeat song and she thinks the breaks are really cool. That was that guitar notes I was talking about. This album is very restrained when it comes to cool production things, like things where you go, ooh, cool production. But I like it when it appears. Next song is called Friendship. This reminds me a lot of Melanie Martinez. Maybe it's just this muted guitar and these drums underneath. It also reminds me a little bit of Sugar Ray, despite my haircut. I was not a fan of Sugar Ray in the 90s, a particularly poisonous rock and roll band. Remember when you broke up with your effing ex? God, I'm glad you finally got over them. This is a confusing song because in some ways I'm like, oh, finally, there's another song about best friends. I mean, best friends are super important, right? how many songs are there about best friends? Okay, we got Queen, Best Friend. And then we're done. Period. We're done. There we go. Tell me in the comments after you smash the like bucket. Even if you don't comment, smash the like bucket, subscribe, join my subreddit. Don't join me on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing over there, so just stay away. Seriously, my kids can't help me. I've had them try to help. But do please smash the like bucket and subscribe. But like that's it. So it's nice to have a song that's about a best friend, but then he refers to the best friend as baby, and then in a verse he says, I'm going to marry you when you're 32. So maybe this is this whole little section that's all about this friendship breaking up, which is why I put this in that sort of friendship category, saying I will marry you when you're 32, because people often do that when they're breaking up. You know, like when they have a friend, they will say, oh, if we're still single, I'll marry you when you're 32 or whatever. 32 is not that young, by the way. Like, don't give up on finding love at 32. I didn't find love that really worked for me until I was 40. So maybe 40, 42. 42, you should marry Ashley. But it's, again, maybe I just don't quite understand really what's happening here. I know that he's a popular vlogger and everyone knows a lot about him, and most of his fans have that deep connection to his life and who he is and what he's about, and I just listen to his music. You know what the Goat's notes are? Goat says it's a great summer song. She thinks it'll be very popular, and she says the swear words are unexpected but cool. One of Goat's things. Even though her brother swears like a sailor who is also a fireman, she never swears. But I guess she thinks it's cool that Conan Gray is swearing here. I hope he doesn't corrupt her. What?
That is, like, it was just kind of shocking to hear that much swearing. Like, it's alright. That's what I meant.
Okay, it's all right, but a little bit shocking. That's true, because he does have that kind of clean image. I mean, I talked about in the last video I did, you know, because I did the Kid Crow review, that he reminds me a lot of Brendan Urie in the way that he sort of has his cake and can eat it too. He can be like a pop star, and he can still sort of have an emo side to him. Like, he can sort of draw in the kids who feel maybe alienated by pop music, while also just being pop music completely. It's a special lane that certain artists can fulfill, like Melanie Martinez, like Panic at the Disco, and like Conan Gray. Maybe it's just anybody that my daughter likes. I don't know. Next song is called Astronomy. Again, about friendship, and I guess this is about that Ashley, about that Amy that Zach Stone loves so much, about their growing apart. It's astronomy, we're two worlds apart. This is maybe the best production on the album in terms of using his voice. Just this haunting production, and his voice is so beautiful, and it's bass and piano. His voice is like aching, but also powerful. I feel like the drums are being played with mallets, and it hits really hard in the post-chorus with this great kind of sweeping sound, and the piano's playing chords that are arpeggiated. The singing really is spectacular on here, and like I get it, you know, like the thing with the pop star is, if you don't get it, there's just no point in listening to it. Like, if you don't get the thing that makes people love it, that's why a lot of people, if they complain about, I don't know, One Direction or BTS, it's like, don't even bother if you can't like get it on that kind of emotional level, even in the abstract, like I can, because I'm not listening to Conan Gray, going, you know, but I get it, and this is the song that really helps me get it. Goat's notes says that she likes the guitar, and she gives the screamy part 9.5 out of 10. Now, you may know on this channel I don't give grades, I don't give scores. I consider myself to be above such a pedestrian method of analyzing music. But apparently Goat did not get that note. She said the screamy part gets a 9.5 out of 10. She also notes that two worlds apart doesn't sound like that much. And it's true. In terms of astronomy, if we're thinking about the scope of the universe and a Hubble telescope going out thousands of light years into the distance, two isn't apart. She also noted in her notes that there was a bug behind her. Next song is called Yours, back into, I think, the friendship theme, just piano and voice. Just real acrobatics with his voice in the chorus. This song is not for me. Definitely my least favorite song. I feel like this is a song to get teenage girls in their feelings, as they say, which is fine. I like the bridge. I like the way the drums come in. It's a little bit of a better melody. And I actually really like the way that the chorus is, the way the lyrics are developed. Can't believe I chose you over all my best friends. What the F did I do in the end just to be not yours? Actually, I guess that's another heartbreak song, isn't it? Goat's Notes says, damn, who hurt him ×2. Talks again about how the song mentions stars. So we have astronomy, we have this, we have disaster, we have this whole kind of sub-theme of the stars. And she also loves the breakdown at the end, which is important. You know, it's important to get people with little breakdowns. Then we get to the song Jigsaw. Now, I don't edit my videos. I don't put stuff in. But hey, would you make a TikTok of me talking about this song with someone doing the Punch-Out challenge? I actually don't do that because I don't want to give those people credit. But this is the song that knocked me out. No, it's not. It's not. Jeez. Now I really should edit the show. Okay, this is the setup, actually. This is the setup, and the next song is the spike. Because we're now entering the parts of the album that are about generational trauma. About the failure of his parents to be there and support him in the way that all children need to be loved and supported. This is the set. Soon will come the spike and the punching, okay? Nice electric guitar with no distortion instead of an acoustic guitar. Interesting choice. The guitar is kind of going back and forth in kind of a slurry motion, almost Nirvana-ish. He even does a little trick with the guitar. Where you take the guitar pick and you put it between the strings. It goes, does a little that trick. And then it becomes almost like a Weezer song in the chorus. You can think that this song is not about his parents, but there's no way it isn't about his parents. If changing my clothes would make you like me more, and if changing my hair would make you care, and I'd grab the scissors and cut myself to slivers for you. If being more polite would keep you satisfied and being less insane would make you stay, then I'd be more like my sister, say thank you, ma'am and mister, to you for you. It's just great. It's about the inability to please your parents. The inability to please your very stern and uncaring parents. The second verse supports this idea. If I made you like me, would I even like myself? Pointing out all my flaws doesn't help. As Goat notes, she likes the anger. It's her favorite song so far, and in a way because she can relate to it. Cool kind of punky second verse. That anger comes through in the way it's played, and the bridge is basically just a straight up Weezer style. Then we get to the complete unexpected depth of the song Family Line. This is the spike after the set. Absolutely blindsided. I could talk to you about the plucked guitar, tremolo line, the great dynamics of the song, but I just can't stop crying because very few artists dare to discuss generational trauma. Very few artists dare to discuss generational trauma. Very few artists dare to discuss generational trauma. They will discuss personal difficulty. They will discuss problems with their parents. They'll get to the edge of that pool, but they won't jump in. We've seen Kendrick Lamar go all the way into that pool, and the whole world was like, whoa, too much, too much. I can't. Could you go back to just like easier things like systematic racism? That's easier for us to process from you than this much, perhaps an even more challenging theme. And here we have this. I had to stop it halfway through. My daughter had to stop it halfway through. There's a lot of things that we've been through together as a family that the song really reflected in us. And what's fascinating is that, so there's this verse that's about his abusive father and the way his mother went away. And then this chorus, scattered across my family line, I'm so good at telling lies that came from my mother's side, told a million to survive. So, like when I think about the way I grew up, I was taught that lying isn't bad. Like I was told lying isn't bad if it doesn't hurt the other person, but you're the one who makes that decision. Not a good thing to learn. I had to unlearn that. I had to fight against that. I now have an always honest policy. I just never lie. By the way, it's a good trick. Never lie. If you never lie, your life is a lot simpler. But here it's about how to survive. So like about how lying is how you have to survive in an abusive situation, which is also true. Scattered across my family line. Hey, isn't this supposed to be some kind of goofy pop song? Okay, fine. God, I have my father's eyes, but my sister's when I cry. I can run, I can't hide from my family line. What's fascinating here, I told you I'd be talking about 19th century French authors. But I'm going to talk about a different kind of realist. This is the author Émile Zola. Émile Zola would write in all of his books. He had all these books that went across many, many, many generations. And he talked about something called the fêlure héréditaire, which is like a grain, a hereditary flaw that gets passed from one generation to the next to the next. And he studies the way that kind of generational trauma, abuse, pain, neglect, disease, addiction, etc., the way that filters through a family from generation to generation. What one needs to do, is break the wheel, break that cycle. Of course, it's possible to break that cycle. You go to therapy, you establish positive boundaries, you distance yourself from people who are hurting you. You stop believing in the lie that you need to forgive everybody, no matter what they do, no matter how little they've asked for or earned forgiveness. We don't actually have to be stuck in this hereditary generational trauma. Kendrick Lamar told us this, and now this pop dude from Georgetown, effing Texas, is telling us, I wonder what I did to deserve this. How could you hurt a little kid? I can't forget, I can't forgive you, because now I'm scared that everyone I love will leave me. It's one of the themes I talk about a lot on this channel, and people have reached out to me personally to thank me for telling them that you don't have to forgive your abusers. You don't have to. You don't. You can. Should you wish to forgive your abusers, you may. But there's a great lie that's been told, and it's been told for generations and generations and generations and generations. And that lie is that you have to forgive your parents, your grandparents, your uncle. You have to forgive people who have abused you, who have hit you, who have raped you, who have manipulated you, who have deprived you, who have neglected you. You have to forgive them, or you're going to regret it when they die. It's a lie. Definitely, forgiveness is wonderful. And for people who ask for forgiveness, maybe they deserve it. But it's not up to the abused to do the work to forgive the abuser. And Conan Gray is telling that. And he's telling that to a lot of young people. And this is a good message. This is what young people need to hear. They don't need to hear, you better let your parent abuse you over and over and over again because that's the way things are, and you've got to forgive them because if you don't forgive them, you'll feel bad. We need this. I was a kid, but I wasn't clueless. Might share a face and share a last name, but we are not the same. Beautiful. Between this and Kendrick, it feels like maybe our whole culture is moving towards holding abusers accountable, no matter what their familial relations is, no matter what the family line is. And I'm here for it. I want to be the Howard Cosell. Jeez, no one under 80 will understand that reference. I want to be the announcer. I want to be the Tom Bergeron, the Ryan Seacrest. Look at the hair. I want to be the Ryan Seacrest who is narrating this whole event as the whole world wakes up to this fact, because it's beautiful. Goat's notes. I thought she fell asleep. She says, ouch. We are not the same. Preach. You are not the same. Absolutely beautiful. Next song is called Summer Child. A little bit of a letdown from the last one just because, after the now we're back into the false emotions, which is interesting. The acoustic guitar, doubled voice. Again, the amount of restraint on the production of this album. It's about somebody who's very optimistic. You see all the flowers in the weeds, but there's darkness behind those eyes, even when you smile. This is trying to talk to somebody else who's not in touch with the real emotions. Somebody who uses optimism The same way that he might use romanticism in a film or people watching, someone who uses optimism to distance themselves from the reality of their feelings over here. Again, we have a fascinating thing of having to be in touch with your real emotions. And the benefit of being in touch with your real emotions is it makes you do things like Family Lines. Just a beautiful song. Reminds me a lot of the song Sommeil by Stromae, where he talks to a friend who lies about how happy they are and about like trying to get to the truth. You're lying, summer child. I love it. Second verse has a nice change in the guitar. It sounds very Beatles-ish. Very beautiful lyricism here. When the sun goes missing, aren't the flowers just as pretty? Aren't the oceans just as deep? Special extra points for not saying ain't. Just, it's a thing. Even I did it when I wrote songs. If I wrote songs and I wanted to say aren't, I would say ain't. Even though I don't use the word ain't in my daily speech. So, weird there. Goat's Notes. She said it is really, really pretty. Doing a lot with his voice. I wanted to keep that extra really because I think that shows. She wonders if he's singing about himself, which is interesting. I think we can make that argument that maybe he is singing about himself being a summer child because we've already seen how he wants to live in movies and how he wants to, live through other people watching. Maybe there. Next song is called Footnote. Another heartbreak song. Oh well. The least interesting production on the album. Being a footnote in her life, not important enough to be in the main text. There's no footnotes in here because it's just a standard edition. More mediation though. It's funny. At some point he says it's just like the novels, side characters end up alone. So we have real romanticism. He even references Pride and Prejudice. So we even have, again, the problem, the thing that happens to Madame Bovary in the book Madame Bovary, the thing that happens to Don Quixote in the book Don Quixote. There's so many books about the problems of romanticism, which is funny because they're books about the problems of thinking too much about books. The problem with romanticism is that it distances you from reality and it leaves you alone. So, I don't know. Goat's Notes says that doesn't like the self-deprecation in this song and just would like to tell Conan there's other fish in the sea. That's part of my problem of the whole heartbreak themes on this album. It's just like, it's the same problem I had with Taylor Swift stuff. It's like, there's going to be like 5 more people you can sing about. You're fine. The next song is called Memories. Another heartbreak song. Very kind of Elton Johnny on this song. I don't know. The melody follows the piano and the bass line. It's quite nice. Great bass work on this song. I like the way he sings the line, "Please don't make this harder for me," in the pre-chorus. He has like a certain emphasis and desperation there. And I like the idea of "Wish It Would Stay in Memories," but maybe it's just because Memories is a song from the musical Cats, which... Yes, before it was the greatest film of 2019, it was also a musical. But this song sounds too much like a musical to me. It ends with like a showcase high note. Goat's Notes. She loves the drop. She also mentions she hasn't been in a relationship since kindergarten, but it's still a bop. So there you go. An angry but gentle song. A lot of the songs on this album are angry but gentle. The final track is called The Exit, another heartbreaking song. The title makes it very clear. I love praising album sequencing. This album doesn't need to have the final song called The Exit because it's so sequenced with those little clusters of songs that are thematically linked here, ending with a series of songs about heartbreak, but that's fine. Piano and voice in the first verse. The rest of it's a little overproduced for my liking. Like these kind of like marching band drums. A little too much studio trickery going on here. Like fine like dynamics, but a little bit too much. The final Goat's Notes.
What?
This is the final Goat's Notes. Let's get a really good... Okay. The strings are 10 out of 10. I don't know how to get her to stop putting note grades on things. I didn't even hear the strings in this song.
Wait, really?
We were listening. It was very cute. We were over at the kitchen and we were both listening, and she was taking her notes and I was taking my notes. So I don't know. Everyone heals at a different pace, and she likes how it ties everything together at the end, and that it is very, very nice. So there you go. There's my review of Daniel Nigro and Conan Gray's album. I realized I should show you the goat's notes because there's some good drawings on there.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh yes.
Oh no!
So there's drawing a goat. There's like photographs, like a jigsaw. So yeah, some good notes there. These are my Patreons. They support me. They help me buy music. I'm probably going to buy this album for my daughter. So thank you to them for getting the album for her.
Thank you.
So you want to join them, patreon.com/Professor Sky. I'll leave that on there a little bit longer. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.